Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. I wanted to do a painting of a bay Roan Mustang for Starbat Crafts. She is a model horse enthusiast, as am I. I have done some custom models and done some model horse showing. She asked for a bay Roan Mustang, so I decided I was going to do this model because it has a really good pose. It's always good to use reference. But I also thought I would talk a little bit more about how to paint horses, because I'm kind of learning how to paint horses. I think it's really important when you are sketching, first of all, like your first and foremost rule when you are working on any drawing is to get your angles right. Nothing else matters in a drawing in terms of foundation, unless you want to do like structural drawing, which I should have done for this, but I was also going off of reference, so I think that kind of just made me complacent. So my foundational drawing, so to speak, is not as good as it could be. Shame on me and all that, but sometimes you just want to paint a horse. Horses have very specific movements. They have to move in a certain way, or they will trip and fall, break their leg, that sort of thing. So it is very important to pay attention to the motion of the horse and the angle of their legs, the position of their legs. A lot of people have wobbly or kind of gummy legs on horses. You will also see in a lot of famous paintings, historical paintings, illustration that horses run like dogs, that they're like leaping forward, and to me, that looks like 1 second away from disaster, because it's like, oh, this is like an illustration of right before the horse face plants. And I think it's important that if you are studying the equine form or trying to do equine fine art, you pay attention to the cadence of the gait, like a trot, like a lope, canter, how horses approach jumps. You know, watch videos of them, because horses are blind directly in front of them. So a lot of times when a horse is going over a jump, they'll tilt their head slightly so that they can actually see the jump. And I think a lot of people who look at horses see them as very secondary, like, you know, I want to draw the character, oh, and he's got a horse. And I feel like that turns off anybody who would take an interest in a horse. If you draw the pose wrong, an equestrian or a horse enthusiast is going to know. And they're not going to buy your stuff or not going to like your stuff because you're drawing horses inaccurately. Second rule of drawing, well, painting. Second rule of painting horses is to try and stay soft. I realize that horses are kind of hard animals in their legs, but a lot of horses have softness to them. And a lot of times when I'm painting, I do start out with very sharp angles and then slowly soften those angles as I work, especially when I'm painting, because painting is about the strokes, and I have not learned yet how to do horses stroke by stroke, where it's just like one line is the neck, and one line is the muscle in the neck, one line is the throat latch. I'm not there yet. I house paint, which is back and forth motion of the brush, and you're not supposed to do that, but it's a very bad habit that I have, and you can see it in this painting. I am really just trying to follow my reference here. A lot of shape work is important, and I'm also working with what you would call mud. James Gurney, the author of Dinotopia and one of the great illustrator masters that is actually alive and contemporary, he uses mud a lot, and mud is neutral, kind of middle colors. They're not very saturated, and they tend to be grays or browns. But you're supposed to work with mud because a lot of life, like real life, is muddy colors. James Gurney will sometimes do guest appearances on the Muddy Colors blog, and that's the exact reason why, is because a lot of painters just work with mud. So this horse is I was definitely color picking off of the model, and this horse starts out very, very muddy, and I'm just trying to separate the planes through paint of the planes of the animal, but I'm also kind of copying what I see on reference. You should always use reference. People are like, oh, that's cheating. And it's like, show me someone that says that using reference is cheating, and I will show you an artist that is not accurate. I do believe that it's important to use reference because horses can be so subtle. So absolutely, look at your reference, combine your reference, look at things very closely in your reference because they will teach you things. You will learn every time you do a painting from reference. And I learned a lot from this. I don't know if I'm improving. I feel like this horse is very similar to the Monarch Percheron painting I did about a year ago. I'm a little on the fence about whether or not I'm getting better, but I did make some stylistic choices later on because I'm trying to pursue this style in my illustration work and hopefully like books that I will publish in the next couple of years. I'm also grabbing the Painterly blender here to soften a lot of my edges because all of my edges were the same. And I have not learned yet how to make soft edges in digital painting that work as well as a blender. I'm trying, but it's not that great. And I don't like smear everything here. I keep some of my hard edges because hard and soft edges are important in painting. But I can't get my edges soft by laying down strokes, so I have to depend on a blender. I've also been told by a lot of digital painting tutorials that you're supposed to stay away from blenders until you've done 100 paintings. I have not done 100 paintings of horses yet. I just couldn't bear it because it was just like, please, just let me be soft and smear a little bit. You'll also notice that I flipped the painting. It's a good tactic. A lot of people who do digital art tutorials will tell you that it's a good idea to flip your painting. I'm just laying in more detail here, and I'm also laying in line. I have had a very love-hate relationship with line throughout my art, but I finally made the decision that I like line, and I want to use line. I think line a lot of times is kind of sneered at, that it's like, oh, you have to use lines, you must be an illustrator, not a fine artist. But no, it's like I'm tired of being ashamed of using line. I want line to be an element in my work because I enjoy it. I think you should be allowed to make whatever choices you want artistically. This is a bay roan horse, so I'm laying in some just basic hairs as far as the roaning starting to come up on the face. I'm still bad at hair. I don't feel like I'm very good at making fine strands, but hair kind of tends to lay in clumps, and you can always do negative work, as you just saw, where you can erase things and create form by erasing. And I do clean up my paintings because those initial laydown marks are very chaotic and they don't necessarily work with the painting, so they get erased. I've done a lot of study of negative space, and I think it's important to pay attention to your negative space because that's cleanup, that's silhouette, that's work that will make the painting stronger and better. I would definitely encourage people to remember that the eraser is a valid tool, and you can use the eraser the same way that you use a paintbrush or anything else digitally. Reluctant ones qualify, and the eraser is a very important tool to me. And it pays attention to negative space when you're using the eraser, and negative space is very important. This is after I went into Photoshop and color corrected because I had a lot of mud, and it was like, okay, I think I'm ready to add some actual, like, local color. That the horse is a bay roan, he's got kind of a red head and red legs, and more of like a silver or gray body. I was really trying to do a lot of detail. I was really trying to pursue my style. I don't think I'm quite there with my stylistic choices, but I am very pleased with how this turned out. I think it shows off my style, the style that I'm moving towards, pretty well. And I really was trying to do a lot on the face because a lot of horse, I don't know, equine art appeal is that you're seeing the detail of the face, the emotion of the animal. This guy is having a good time, you know. I know he might look a little serious, but he's kind of prancing and showing off his power. I really wanted to try and capture the more intricate details of the face, and I worked on the face more than any other part of the horse. That is also a tip that I would give. It's called the 80-20 rule, that 80% of your painting is just kind of there, and then your detail work and your focus is 20% of the painting. Also, you spend 80% of your time and effort on 20% of the painting, because that is the focus point. And I was doing that with the face here because it was the most important part of the painting for me. The 80-20 rule is a good rule of thumb because it's like, am I doing this right? Or am I paying attention to stuff that doesn't matter in the painting, that the person looking at the painting is not going to care about? What is my focus? And once you've determined what your focus is, you spend 80% of your time making that focus look as good as you possibly can. Looking back at this, it's kind of like, maybe I wish I hadn't used line because it was a pretty good, like, painting on its own. But that's my personal struggle going on right now because it's like, oh no, I should have done more fine art as a choice. I should have kept it as a painting, and then maybe it would have been a fine art horse painting. So you can see my conundrum because even in my voiceover, I'm like, oh man, I should have stayed away from line. Line makes it look cheap and bad. I do really like this painting as far as the colors. Bay Roan is one of my absolute favorite of all time colors. So I tried to add a little bit of dappling to him. A lot of times when a horse is very healthy, they will get dapples. You can also do reverse dapple. Reverse dapple can occur on a roan horse, and I really think that marking is very pretty. I am also attempting to do backgrounds because I'm terrible at backgrounds. I hate environmental painting and I hate landscape painting, and I really feel like it's a skill that I should have. I shrunk this guy a little because his hair or his forelock was going off the canvas, so I was like, all right, we could just shrink him down a little bit so that he's not creating a tangent that pulls the eye off the page. Here I am attempting to do some sort of background, and I watched a tutorial about someone who did really just fantastic clouds, and clouds are very fun to paint, so I'm going to paint some clouds because they're not boring. I think landscapes can be very boring. I toned the canvas to be this kind of warm orange background because it creates harmony with the colors of the horse. and then I can paint over it and still have kind of these warm tones. I don't like grass. I don't like florals. I feel like a lot of people who are successful at selling art can just do this incredibly detailed floral work, and that kind of stuff just drives me crazy. I'm definitely struggling still with the idea of think about your background before you actually paint something, and obviously I did not do that here. He just has kind of a slapped-on background. It was a very good exercise. Stylistically, I'm pleased with how this turned out. I hope that this was helpful in some way, whether you're painting horses or not. Horses are just a difficult subject matter, so I feel like no one else on YouTube is doing horses, but also I feel like a lot of people don't care about horses. I hope Starbat appreciates the Bay Roan. I had a lot of fun just doing the painting. It was a very great learning experience, and I will see you guys on the channel next time. Like and subscribe!